It's a pleasure to introduce the next panel, which is related to digital technology in the fashion and textile industry. There's a lot going on there, as I'm sure you're aware. I'm going to introduce the panel chair, Mark Sumner, Dr. Mark Sumner, who is one of my colleagues here, lecturer in sustainability, retail and fashion. Mark has had quite a long career in lots of different places, including Marks and Spencer's, where you worked for quite a long time before coming to Leeds. I didn't know that you also trained as a quantity surveyor, so that's an interesting...
Oh yeah, we could do it.
I didn't know that. I've learned something today. Anyway, he left M&S Retail and joined the University of Leeds some time ago, and is one of our leading academics in the textile sustainability and fashion sustainability area. So, Mark, I will hand it over to you, and welcome panel. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Steve. So, do we want to do quantity surveying? No, we'll stick with the digital stuff. I completely forgotten I'd done that. Thanks for that, Steve. Thanks for everyone to turn up to the afternoon session. It's going to be a really interesting session. I've already confessed to some of the panel that I'm a complete Luddite when it comes to digital technology. So I'm really interested to hear about the vision of the future for fashion and digital. So it's going to be a really interesting session. We, as always, haven't got enough time to do everything that we need to do. So I'm not going to talk for too long. In fact, I'm just going to do a very brief introduction. I'm going to hand over to each of the panelists, just in the order that we're in now, and just get them to do a quick 5 minutes about who they are. And then we're going to get into some questions. I've written down some boring questions here that we're going to get through. But if you have any interesting questions you want to fire out, please do put your hand up, wave. Wait for the roving microphone to turn up, and we'll get your questions to the panel. Is that okay? Brilliant. Fab. So, without further ado, in the order that we've got here, I'm just wondering, Assaf, if you can just get us going with a quick 5 minutes of who you are and what you do.
Of course.
Thank you.
Can you hear me well? Yeah? Okay, great. My name is Assaf Reeb. I'm from the Digital Fashion Archive, and you might have seen outside some very high-fidelity 3D models. Essentially, what we're doing is building repositories of very precise, very high-fidelity 3D models of garments that have cultural or historical significance. So the starting point for everything we do is really about heritage and how valuable it is for brands today. And we're looking at, so me and the team, and Kevin from the team is also with me here today, we all worked in this domain of digital fashion for the last few years since it started to emerge. Before that, we all had backgrounds in either tech or hands-on physical fashion. And after working in this industry for a while, we felt the need and the lack, let's say, of a representation for the fidelity and the qualities that make fashion significant. So why does a certain fabric or a certain shape or a certain garment or a certain brand is valuable? And what kind of value does it give the brand, and how the brand can capitalize on it? So therefore we created, thanks to some support from Innovate UK, the Digital Fashion Archive, which you can see outside. We worked with some designers who are all UK based, and selected some pieces from their previous collections to perpetuate the designs and to really make it available in a much more accessible way. So if you're thinking about archives, if you're thinking about the access or the ability of brands to capitalize on previous collections, usually it's neglected. And it's neglected because it's difficult. I mean, a lot of brands don't have physical archives that are very well organized. And the ones who do, it's just not very available. So, I mean, you might have access to it if you're working in-house as a designer, or if you're a student in a school in London and you can go to the Victoria and Albert and get access to this or that garment. But we feel like the value of these garments is, needs to be unlocked. And the way to unlock it is to create these very high fidelity replicas that have precise 2D patterns and a very good representation of the materials. And I'm not going to go into all the technicalities of how we make these things unless it's interesting for anyone. I can, be very nerdy on that as well. But essentially, it's about appreciating the qualities that make a garment significant, translating them into virtual environments in very high fidelity, rendering them in game engines, which means you can interact with them in more than just a linear way. And by that, I mean it's not just a video, it's essentially a much more complex file that is situated inside of an environment where you can interact with it, you can create multiple use cases. And eventually, which is something that was very hyped a year or two ago and is currently, experiencing a downturn, but from my point of view, will continuously go up in the next decade, make these garments available in immersive environments and in virtual environments. So, we're not getting any less immersed in virtual spaces, but for brands to be represented well in those environments, we need to translate the products in high fidelity, like in real detail, and express the things that make these garments valuable in those environments, because tech companies and gaming companies will not necessarily put an emphasis on that. And it's important because it's the heritage is a really big part of what makes the fashion industry at large valuable. And just to say a few words about myself, as I said, I come from physical fashion, did my master's at Central St. Martin's, so was very focused on a traditional fashion career under Louise Wilson, and very organically transitioned into digital, working with brands like Porsche, creating digital experience for them, also Wedgwood, so a variety of design-driven brands. Also brands like Dr. Martens or H&M, so it's not necessarily luxury brands, but it's any kind of brand who want to engage in those environments in a meaningful way that aligns with the brand values and the kind of value that they want to capitalize on in virtual. But I can talk more and more about it.
Thank you very much. That's great. So really interesting. You're talking about value and accessibility. I'm a bit concerned now because the School of Design has got two physical archives that we use, and the M&S archive is here, but it's really interesting how difficult it is to capture all of that value from 50, 60, 70 years of business. So really, there can be lots of questions, I think, related to that as well. But before we get into that, Alexandra, over to you.
Hi, everyone. I'm happy to be here. My name is Alexandra, and I'm the founder and co-CEO of seamm. So seamm is a digital platform. What we do, we bridge Web3 and Web2 worlds for fashion. We have two main solutions at the moment. One is the first ever fully digital marketplace that has the best features digital fashion can offer, such as AR try-ons. I'm sure many of you tried before. If not, we have a fantastic brand that we collaborated with, Kennington & Sanderson. They're here, and you can check out the feature in the next room. The other cool feature we have is customization, which is also great for brands because they can create made-to-orders and is great for production. The other cool feature is transferring digital items into games, Roblox, Minecraft, and other virtual realms such as metaverses, Decentraland, Sandbox. So that is one of our main solutions, and I myself come from a traditional fashion background. I've been in the industry since I was 17. And I worked everywhere in retail, wholesale, production, so every area you can imagine. And I ended up in technology because I believe that this is the most interesting place you can be in, especially in 2024, because technology has dramatically changed our lives. But fashion has been slow comparing to the other industries. And I believe that one of our main missions here is to change that industry, to show brands how they can benefit from digital technologies. And I want to show that digital fashion is not something that stands aside from traditional fashion. I want to show that brands need to use those technologies. They should benefit from them, and they should not think that it's something happening in the future. It's actually happening now. And we are happy to show brands how they can use it, how they can gain new customers, how they can even make more money. So it's an exciting place to be in, and I'm happy to share our best ideas.
Thank you very much.
Answering your questions. Thank you.
Thank you. And really interesting, you asking, talking about this idea of fashion brands needing to know how to access digital. And you mentioned making the money part of it, which is important.
Yeah.
In fact, I sat with two very large brands recently, and they were talking about how excited they were about some of the digital stuff that's going on. And it was really interesting. They sat there and went, it's really exciting. We don't know what it is, and we don't know how to access and make money from it. So
here we are.
Here
We're
are.
happy to show
Brilliant.
them how.
Okay. So, well, maybe I have some questions for you as well as we go through this. But last but not least, Roseanna, if I can ask you to just give us a quick 5 minutes.
Yeah, so I'm Roseanna. I'm a print designer, and basically through COVID, I was awarded some money through Innovate UK to help me innovate a way to still connect with my customers in a business-to-business brand. So basically, I created Swatch Editor. So it's an MVP, but we have traction with it. So we're working with mills and brands and designers and print design studios. So basically, we're just helping people to collaborate through digital technology and investigating the language behind it. So basically, we want to show that, there's a lot of questions that we get asked about being confident about using tech, and we just wanted to kind of show them that it's just a tool that can be used, and it's a matter of how you use that technology, but it has to be throughout the whole supply chain. And I think we're moving quite fast with digital. There's lots of tech companies popping up. Nobody really knows how to use it, but everyone needs to be able to use it right down to the consumer. So at the end of the day, the consumer is the person who's going to be wanting to connect with all of this. And I think my priority is to make sure that a product is created smartly. So when it reaches the sales point, it's thought about at the end of that sales process. And I think with Swatch Editor, we're designing from the ideating stage of design. So we're getting lots of good feedback. We need to grow our product more, but it's helping in-house to. There's a lot more in-house collaboration going on. There's a lot more production being made in-house, and they're not going out and sourcing, so they want to bring things in-house. So things like Swatch Editor can help a crossover as well. So we're just trying to find different ways to tackle the problems of people understanding why they want digital and how that can help them in today's industry.
That's great. Thank you very much. So there are challenges out there, different problems that people are looking at, and it's really interesting you're talking about helping people understand the technology. As a self-confessed Luddite, I struggle with turning a printer on and off. So this is going to be really challenging for me to learn about the stuff that's going on here. But I guess that's not unusual for people. It's just trying to think about how we can use the technology and how we actually evolve that whole supply chain that's involved in the different parts of the industry.
And I guess it's the brand who needs to take responsibility for their product from the beginning right through to the end as well. So that's it.
Yeah, absolutely. So brands being one big part of that whole supply chain, yeah. So hopefully from that introduction, it's got the juices going, people thinking about things. So if there are any questions, do feel free to wave and we'll try and get as many questions in as we can. I'm going to start off... Charles, I'll come to you in a second. I forgot that Charles was here. So I'm just going to start off with a quick one, just because I am a lecturer in sustainable fashion. So one of the things that, really interested in is trying to understand how we can still deliver the thing that fashion does for people, but do it in a way that is minimising some of those environmental and some of those social aspects. And I just wondered, for you guys sitting here, and I know you're all coming from slightly different perspectives, but I just wonder how you envision how the technologies that we're talking about, maybe your own, but other people's technologies, can help us work out how we can become more sustainable across the whole life cycle of a garment. It's just a small question to get started. Anybody want to? Yeah, thank you, Alexandra.
Yeah, I think there are many ways how we can help, but I have 3 key examples that we've been working on, and I've seen good impact. So first of them is, the normal wholesale model in fashion. So usually brands would produce a small collection of garments, samples, they'll bring it to fashion weeks, show to the buyers. And most of those items wouldn't even be picked up, so it's waste. They will produce samples in all sorts of different colors. Then buyers will ask to change the color. They would produce again. And I think digital fashion can help in a very simple way. By producing digital twins, that's what we do. We produce 3D digital twins that are very detailized. So when you zoom in, you can see every single detail. You can see how the garment looks like. You can even try it on with an AR try-on. So why waste material? Why do that if you can actually create a line sheet? Instead of like printing it on paper and showing the garments, just do it virtually. Just put it in a metaverse space. Or check it even on your phone. Just do 3D twins. And that's already, it helps in a lot of ways, right? So it decreases that environmental impact, like logistics and waste management. And I also mentioned AR try-ons. So has anybody in this room actually tried AR? Yeah? Yeah? Okay. There's not? Okay, cool. Some of you. So the technology is not there yet. It's not ideal at the moment, but we're getting there. I know several big companies that are working on it, and every week, to be honest, it gets better and better. So I believe that in the next 2 years, AR try-on technology will be fascinating and will be realistic. So I think with AR try-ons, you can reduce again unnecessary purchases. So you know that returns are a really, really big problem in fashion, because I'm sure all of us buy things and we then return them. We buy multiple sizing. We just buy items. We don't know how they look in real life. So, I mean, when we shop online, obviously. So I think AR try-on can sort this out, because you can try it on and you will have a better understanding. Does it actually fit like your wardrobe? Is the color right? Does it suit you? So that's another way. And the third good example, there's a thing called digital product passports that are going to be obligatory in 2026 for those brands who want to sell in Europe. So what we're offering for brands, for example, is a version of digital product passports, but not just something that the European Commission has required. They're saying that brands should put all the information stating where it was produced and the care label, but I think it's not enough. I think it's important to put it on blockchain to make it completely transparent, and for users to actually, for end customers to be aware of what they are buying. We need to educate users. They need to see where actually the item was made. They need to track it, and that's the only way you can track it if it's on chain. So I think digital product passports can help in a big way. I believe in them as the future.
A lot of stuff packed in there, so thank you for that. I mean,
I tried to make it short.
Do we have any buyers in the room? Any buyers?
Brands?
No. I can be rude. I can be rude about buyers. They're always changing their minds.
Yeah.
And this idea of taking out the physical aspect of this to allow people to have that flexibility to do different things is really interesting, and also from the consumer point of view as well. So that's brilliant. So you've got 3 key things around sort of waste, and also really interesting about that connection with consumers. Anybody else want to add their grand view of sustainable fashion? And
I would maybe just say that I think actually, technological innovation, I personally, my approach for it is that it's not something that stands as a gimmick or as a hot word, and now we're putting in AI, and 2 years ago we were putting in blockchain and things like that. I think it's really about the substance of how this serves the existing goals of the brands, and in that sense, it's not foreign to sustainability as an approach. I think fashion brands need to, and they are starting to, but I think they need to understand that we are shifting from a certain mode where the fashion industry was operating and generating revenue into a new mode where it's much more entertainment-like. And if you're thinking about fashion as entertainment and you start thinking, where are the opportunities to monetize and to create new revenue streams? and where they are today. So not, you know, like in a theoretical future where brands will be, you know, making a ton of money in games, for example, because right now games are making a lot of money, but brands haven't really found their way in yet in a coherent kind of like authentic way. I think trying to focus on the areas that are mature. So I agree with you about augmented reality, for example. It's still highly experimental for full body try-ons, but focusing on the areas where you can achieve a result that is good enough for, you know, and is up there with everything else that, I don't know if there are manufacturers in the audience or brands or anyone who, you know, see their work as high craft, focusing on the places where we can translate this high craft into virtual and into all kinds of forms of entertainment-like approach is the future of a much more sustainable mode of operation for the fashion industry.
And it's interesting, isn't it, that, you know, fashion is about clothes, but it's also about how they provide us with enjoyment, passion, which closely aligns with entertainment, I guess.
And why not move to a subscription model, you know, not just about wearing physical things, but if you can offer a captivating enough digital content, whether that's access to patterns, whether that's access to models of from your archive or any kind of experience that is good enough, then you're in a position to really monetize. And that we have certain parts of the digital realm which are mature now to the point where you can offer this level of value, I think, to consumers.
Great. So we're talking about fun and talking about money. That's good. Okay.
Roseanna,
I think it's, you know, it can really open up new markets for everyone, for print designers especially. I think it can open up the metaverse, to sell in the metaverse. I think you can, from what I can gather from brands that I'm working with at the moment and creating digital twins, I think the digital wardrobe will be for the customer at the end of the day, to your consumer. Every consumer will have a digital copy of their physical garment, which will have information based on how they can recycle, what they can do with it, which brings more engagement to your consumer. And we are all consumers at the end of the day. You know, it's all about the culture and connecting. And if you can connect with your customer through digital, then I think we're doing the right thing. From my point of view as a print designer, I know that at the ideating stage, there's 20% of waste from fashion. And I think from what I can see, with people being able to collaborate with print design and with 3D garments, that actually they can do far more iterations of ideas and process those before they actually move down the chain to the next point. But all of this can actually, you know, if fashion's quite fragmented in a traditional sense, digital can really bring that together, and you can still have your independence within it, but you can bring fashion together in a digital way, which obviously is going to be beneficial to the planet. That's why we're all here. I know we're not supposed to talk about that, greenwashing and everything, but it's true. There's so much waste out there. And, you know, I remember going to Premier Vision for the first time with my collection, and it wasn't just about the fabric, but it was about everything to do with that show. And we need trade shows. We need to connect. We need to go and meet each other. Maybe not as much, and maybe we can actually do a lot of that trading and disrupt the trading process. There are ways to disrupt that. There's ways that we can make money by doing that as well, by changing e-commerce. And I think the infrastructures that we've got is a fantastic way where we're starting, but it just needs to come together and it needs to be thought about so we get it right in the beginning.
There's something about accessibility as well, isn't there? It's been a long time since I've been to PV, but to get to PV, you've obviously got to get to Paris. You've got to have the right cards to get in. And even once you're in, sometimes you can't get on the stands because you're the wrong brand. So it's really interesting about that digital aspect, you know, that it almost opens up the world to what you're doing as someone that might be selling product, but also if you're interested in buying. Charles, do you still have a question? Can we get the mic over to Charles? Oh. And do feel free, if anyone else has got any questions, just wave.
Thank you, Mark. It's a question on haptic technology. Leeds, I don't know what stage you're at with haptic technology. I know a couple of years ago there was a buzz about it, but we're now at the stage where I can define a Pantone colour, but I can't define the texture, the shine, or the drape of a fabric. You three are a lot closer to it than I am. How close are we to being able to communicate in those three languages?
I'm really glad you explained haptics. I was sitting there thinking, it's a country somewhere, isn't it? But great, thank you for that, Charles. So what we're talking about here is trying to understand how we, bridge that gap between... The amazing thing about watching people shop, by the way, if you ever do this, just watching people in a store, don't stalk them, just watch them. But it's how we use our hands to buy stuff. So this is where I get stuck in my Luddite world of going, well, how do we do this? So, has anyone got any ideas?
I mean, have a look outside and you tell me, that's what we're working on. We're really trying to find these, to apply the sensibilities that we have as people who deeply love and appreciate fashion, but also understand come from the different aspects of the tech that is required to produce these outcomes, how to achieve that. And it's not always that straightforward because the tools that we are using were not made for that. They weren't necessarily, if you're thinking about graphic shaders, they were not necessarily made to replicate the fabric with the sheen, with the certain kind of roughness and variations that it has. So you need to build these things in and find the right ways of doing that. So I think that's kind of like the challenge that we're dealing with. And I think in some aspects we're getting pretty good results, but that's up for you to judge.
And I guess in terms of the archive aspect of this is the touch and feel that you can get from a real garment in an archive is really important. So I guess that's part of that process you've got to go through as well in terms of developing the technology to be able to reproduce that in the best way possible.
And I think it's really magical, right? Like it's really difficult to define. And you're right. It's things that you need almost like a sense for to understand how a certain fabric drapes or how a certain shape hangs or what's special about a certain fit and why it's typical for a certain decade, how that makes something more valuable than something else. And this is the kind of stuff that differentiates a cheap copy from a wonderful original with 200 years of heritage. So that's really something that is difficult to capture, but it requires this merge between expertise and hands-on and domain expertise of the fashion industry and the textile industry, and very good skills and very good communication between the two sides, because it's impossible to have the 360 sort of like skill set that is required to bring something like that in one person. It's always a team that creates these kind of excellent, outstanding results, in my view.
Thank you. Roseanna, from your perspective in terms of digital print and coming, I guess, from a very physical background in terms of the work you've done, are you starting to see how some of this new technology can do some of the things that Charles is talking about?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to show my age here now, but I remember as a youngster looking through a magazine, looking through a catalogue like Freeman's or whatever, and you just buy something because you knew. I don't know what it is. I think we forget as human beings we have a connection with fabric from the day we're born. We're clothed. We know we're swathed in something, and as you go older, you touch, you feel wherever you are, and I just think you have that connection anyway. So there's an inability within us to understand cloth, to understand fabric. And when I used to buy clothing, obviously there's a price point as well. You know you're going to get a superior product well, you hope if it's a certain price point that you're going to get something more than if it's, 4 times more than a coffee that you bought or something. There's probably something seriously wrong there and it's going to be an inferior product, and somewhere down the line somebody's going to be, misused. But basically I just think the reason why I've created Swatch Editor as well is to get that sense of connection. So yeah, you can't get that feel by looking at it, but there's something within, I think, the human psyche that probably knows the way that it's draped on something, the way that it flows, that you can bring in that connection.
And that's a really important point, isn't it? We forget that clothing is such an intimate part of our lives from the point that we're born to the point that we're not alive anymore. And it's just really interesting how we learn the look of a fabric and what that means in terms of touch.
Yeah.
But I guess, Alexandra, in terms of, the sort of stuff that you're doing with the technologies, is that part of your roadmap to bring the haptic in?
That is not part of our roadmap, but I do believe that we are also getting there. I've actually seen a very interesting project here that is, I don't know if the person is in this room, but there's a very interesting project that allows you to feel the fabric by placing your hand over like a small screen, and it uses like a very cool technology. You cannot see in this room, but yeah. So I think in terms of just looking at a 3D item and seeing the texture, the way you usually draw it, it is difficult to understand because we all need to feel it and touch it. It's just our nature. That's why e-commerce never kind of moved traditional kind of shopping experience completely. We still go to the shops. We still want to, feel the garment. And I understand it. But I think in a couple of years, yeah, there are several companies that are working on that, I know. And yeah, I would say 3-4 years, we'll have an experience like that.
Okay, so we'll have another one of these sessions in 3 years and see where we've got to. Great. Bill, a quick question.
Thank you. I think it's very exciting, the potential of digital technology to address some of the big issues like fast fashion. But I remember, it must be 20 years ago, the early days of body scanning. It turned out you needed a retail partner. You needed a retail partner to actually have that scanner somewhere where the public went to actually get measured. I tried to talk to a lot of Yorkshire men about going and getting the body scan to get suits made for them. They said, we're not going to go to a booth and take our clothes off. And I asked them, what do you do when you're trying a suit now? You don't put it on over your clothes, do you? But so there's some natural resistance to that. And I can certainly see how manufacturing on demand, massive, because if people can actually choose and order and pay for what they want before you even manufacture it, what a great business model. But I wonder, this can work in the luxury end without a shadow of a doubt, but will it really make an impact in the huge area, which is our real problem about fast fashion, to penetrate and get consumers to use those tools to set up new opportunities for designers to sell B2C would be fantastic. But I think we're a long way from it being anything but the luxury end.
That's great. I mean, and I'm sorry, I'm just stuck with the image of the Yorkshireman getting changed, but I'm moving swiftly on. Thanks for that, Bill. So an interesting question there, and I think, when we... fast fashion is almost is a purchasing behaviour as well as a sector of the market. And I think sometimes with fast fashion, as a behaviour, we buy things and actually when we get them home, they don't look right, they don't feel good. They're not what we thought they were on the website, for example. So it'd be really interesting to see how what you think about the sort of the technologies and how we can actually be in a position where consumers can actually buy better in the sense of, this is my style, this is what I really like, therefore it's more likely to buy a thing that I enjoy wearing, and if I enjoy wearing it, I'm going to wear it for longer, which ultimately removes that idea of fast fashion.
Can I quickly? So I think this also ties back to the haptics question, which I don't know much about, to be honest. And I can tell you, visually, the advancements that AI brought into the possibility of rendering things without bottlenecks and creating hyper-realistic results that are indistinguishable from reality in basically a couple of years have been amazing. And I think, everything that we're imagining of what's the most immersive, realistic, indistinguishable from reality virtual experience is already possible. Assume that it's already being worked on. There's probably a solution that's maybe not commercialized, and in a couple of years it's going to be out there. That's my assumption. And I think all the brands need to think in that kind of mindset. They need to think in a year or two when immersive experiences are not going to be restricted by certain, rendering bottlenecks and device limitations, but are going to be essentially AI enhanced, and everything is going to look as if it's real. And you're going to have a choice if you want it to look gamified, stylized, realistic, hyper-realistic. but this is going to be the reality. And then where is your place inside of that reality? You know, like in that very, very realistic, immersive experience. So that doesn't answer the haptics part, but it does. You know, it might be good enough, even if the haptics part is not fully resolved. And then in the context of try-ons, I think that is another place where AI comes in, where I've seen it with body tracking, for example. You know, we've used Kinects, for example, to capture a person's movement in space, or expensive, you know, suits with a lot of tracking sensors and very expensive setups until, you know, 2-3 years ago, to get good results in terms of 3D body tracking and getting a sense of what a 3D body looks like in space and how it's moving and capturing that in an accurate way. And what you can do now with a phone, an AI, and a video stream, a 2D video stream, is just, you know, it's sometimes much better than a device that costs thousands of euros and, you know, a whole setup and a very complicated technical pipeline, where you can just take a phone, take a video, and get a really nice result. And I saw that when I was working with a brand with very expensive products. We sent the products to a 3D scanning facility and got them back. And we also collaborated with an artist. The artist came in, 3D scanned the object with his phone, got almost a good result, but it took him 20 minutes, not 3 days, and didn't cost like hundreds of pounds.
So what we're saying here is that there's an evolution of the technology that we're seeing that is going to move it, hopefully move it from that luxury end, being a unique thing there, that's going to spread as it tends to do in fashion. It starts at the top and works its way down. Alexandra, I could see that you were nodding quite a lot there, and you sort of.
No. I was just thinking, because it's interesting. You mentioned the 3D body scanner, and they still exist, and it's still the same method. You have those 360 degrees kind of rooms. You go there, they scan your body. And that's, of course, the best way. But it's true that you'll soon be able to do that from your phone. The technology is almost there, like almost there. It's there, but it's not as good, probably, as the 360 boots. But I think as soon as that technology is going to be everywhere, that's how mass market brands, they will collect your data, and they will adjust their production. It's the way.
Great. I'm just very wary. Thank you for that. I've just realised that we're running out of time, and we're only in the first half of the questions. Has anyone got a really quick question? Steve, did you want to?
I can ask one.
Yeah.
I'll even try and make it quick.
Yes, if you could.
Thank you very much. I mean, lots of people talking. Thank you very much. I mean, lots of people talking about machine learning, artificial intelligence. Very interesting. One of the topics we rarely talk about is the way we go about designing fashion and textile products. We're all trained to do that in a certain way. So in the team here, we are training algorithms to generatively design product. You could argue one of the problems we have in the whole industry is designing a load of stuff that no one really wants. So we just build in waste from the beginning. We wouldn't be having sales and, you know, getting rid of inventory if that wasn't the case. So if you imagine a world, you mentioned, I think Assaf mentioned, this big archive of digital material, beautifully rendered. If that became a digital resource that an AI algorithm could work from as a source material to start generating equally beautiful product very, very quickly, you could imagine how disruptive that might be to the whole forecasting industry, to the speed that we do things, but also equally, you can imagine some quite potentially sad consequences as well. So I think I just wanted to throw that in because I know there are people actively looking at that, and it could be extremely disruptive in a good and a bad way.
I'm holding myself not to tell you, like, you know, to put a concrete example in place because I'm working with a client on it and I don't want to spill the beans for everyone.
Oh, go on, spill the beans.
No, not yet. In a few months. But I think actually, like, you know, there's a completely different way to look at it. If you flip it completely and you think, what if, you know, think about product customization in the context of generative AI. So moving control, power, taste, preferences to individual consumers and giving them. Obviously, there are a lot of different problems in the production pipeline, but if you're thinking about fashion as a form of entertainment, then it's much easier to think about it as, oh, actually everybody have the capacity and the tools to make their own product, to make their own experience, their own variation. So in that sense, it's very exciting. I mean, you could set the parameters. Everybody could do whatever they want. I will not say more because I feel like I'm like getting ahead of myself. But yeah.
Okay,
but I think you get what I mean. Like,
yeah. Well, that's great. What I was sort of thinking about then is all of the people I work with who were designers, who were involved in the design process. And Roseanna, I'm just wondering whether I'm sort of extrapolating from what Steve is saying there. You know, do we end up getting rid of all the designers? We're not saying get rid of you now, but potentially, do you see an evolution of the design function that, you know,
Definitely,
where we still need designers?
I think you'll always need a designer, but what it can do is free up more design time, and maybe, you know, it just brings about a new space for designers to work in. There's a lot of technical stuff a designer has to do as well. If that can be freed up, then yeah, definitely, I think it could be it is a great tool for a designer to use with, you know, ARC and all those kind of like AI tools and stuff. I just think, yeah, if it's used properly, if it's used well, and if it's well thought out, then it's definitely a smart approach to design.
Yeah, great. And I guess it's like with everything in the world, it's just learning a new set of tools, a new set of rules to be able to fully extrapolate the.
And I think in your team you might need to add in that extra department or person or whatever. It's not just about somebody else learning something new, it's about somebody else coming in and, you know.
So it's not just about me getting my old phone and just scanning someone and go, right, there's a design. We're taking it slightly, or is it?
Or approaching design by brand as guidelines and not as a particular product. You know, because people don't just buy products because they're well designed. They also buy it because it's well designed, but they also buy it because it's made by a brand that they want to associate themselves with. And the, you know, intersection of, I don't necessarily think that the brand knows better than the customer what is good for them, but they still need to provide this sort of like method for social positioning that owning a certain brand gives you. But within that, you need to define some constraints to be consistent with the brand values that you're projecting.
And equally, I, from a personal perspective, I don't know what it is that I want to wear. So I guess AI and those sort of things can help, you know, consumers. Yeah. We've got 2 minutes left. Has anyone got a really, really quick question? I think that hand came up first. Sorry. Yeah. Just a really quick one.
Very quick. How accurate a digital swatch to real fabric?
So there's a quick question. So, and I'll try and phrase it different. What works really well with digital rendering of fabrics, and what doesn't work well at the moment?
So basically, on a swatch with a print over it, it's just about the visualization of the print, but you can adapt that. So there's lots of digital renderings of fabrics out there that you can upload.
No, you don't answer my question.
Oh, sorry.
How you swatch accurate, digital swatch accurate to real fabric? As a consumer, I go online, I choose a specific color, right? Then I go on shop, and it's different shade. And this is my question is, I'm wasting time for journey, I'm disappointed. I'm wearing actually a wrong dress and have a high fever and allergy to show, yes, it should be right color. And how you guarantee that digital swatch will be very close to original fabric.
So, bearing in mind with the time that we've got, just very quickly, I want the three of you just to be thinking about what doesn't work at the moment, but what works really well with digital platforms in terms of that communication with consumers.
It's obviously what platform you're on at home as well. Like with each system that you're on, that's completely different. So there's ways that those products are being moved forward, so everyone has the same view on their screen. But at the moment, I think there's lots of different, like computers and things out there, so there is going to be a discrepancy.
So we've got this challenge around the sort of infrastructure we've got there. Sorry, Alexandra? Do you have a...
I have nothing to add. I think the main problem is the difference in our screens at the moment. That's why we cannot guarantee, of course, that it's going to match. Like, the color on my screen is not going to match the color on your screen sometimes. It depends on your settings as well. But I think when digitizing it, of course, the designers who work on that, they try to make it as accurate as possible, because the main goal everybody is actually going for is for the consumers to be happy and to buy it at the end.
Great, thank you. Assaf, very quickly. I think that was a good question.
Yeah, it's hard to say. There's no one answer.
Great. Well, listen, thank you very much to everyone that asked a question, everyone that's taken part. We really, really appreciate that. And I just would like everyone to say thank you to Assaf, to Alexandra and to Roseanna for their sessions today. Thank you.